I found out my husband was having dinner with his mistress. So, I reserved the table right next to theirs and brought her husband with me. We let them finish their appetizers. Then I leaned over and said, "Oh, what a small world." Their faces went pale. We dropped the divorce papers on their table and walked out together. Now he won't stop calling. I still can't believe I'm writing this. 2 weeks ago, my world was completely different. My husband James and I had been married for 9 years. We have 2 beautiful children, a mortgage on a house we both loved, and what I thought was a solid marriage. James was my best friend. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and had what everyone called a fairy tale wedding. He's an architect at a prestigious firm, and I run my own event planning business. We were busy, sure, but happy. At least that's what I thought. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The late nights at the office. The business trips that suddenly became more frequent. The way he guarded his phone. The decreased intimacy. But you know how it is when you're in the thick of raising kids and managing careers, you chalk it up to stress and exhaustion. It started 3 months ago when James began mentioning a new client, Sophia. Sophia this, Sophia that. How impressed she was with his vision for her company's new headquarters. How they were working closely together to make sure every detail was perfect. How she had such refreshing insights into architecture for someone outside the field. I didn't think much of it at first. James has always been passionate about his work, and I was happy he had a client who appreciated his talent. But then I noticed how he lit up when he talked about her. How he checked his phone more frequently when they were working together. How he started dressing differently on days he had meetings with her. Still, I trusted him. 9 years of marriage. 2 children. A life built together. I refused to let my mind go there. Then came that fateful Tuesday evening. James called to say he had to work late, again. Our daughter had a dance recital that night, one he'd promised not to miss. I was furious but held it together for the kids. After the recital, my daughter was devastated her daddy wasn't there. That's when something in me snapped. I decided to surprise him at the office with some takeout, thinking maybe we could salvage the evening. When I arrived at his firm, the security guard gave me a strange look when I said I was there to see James. "Mr. Reynolds left about 2 hours ago," he said, checking his log. "Said he was headed to dinner with a client." My stomach dropped. I thanked him and walked back to my car in a daze. I sat there for a moment, then on impulse, opened the tracking app we'd installed years ago to locate each other's phones in case of emergencies. I'd never used it to check on him before, we trusted each other. Or so I thought. The little blue dot showed he was at Aurelio's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. It was one of our favorite special occasion places. My hands shook as I started the car. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was just a business dinner. I'd drive by, maybe peek in the window, see him with some clients, feel foolish, and go home. No harm done. When I pulled up to Aurelio's, I parked across the street. Through the large front windows, I could see into parts of the dining room. I scanned the tables, and that's when I saw them. James and a striking woman with long dark hair, sitting close in a corner booth. Too close for a business meeting. They were laughing, his hand resting on hers atop the table. As I watched, frozen, he reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face. Something inside me broke. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just sat there, watching my husband with another woman, while our daughter's tears over his absence were still fresh in my mind. I don't know how long I sat there before the rage replaced the shock. I wanted to storm in, make a scene, throw his wedding ring in his smug face. But some small, rational part of my brain held me back. I needed more information. I needed a plan. I took several photos with my phone, then drove home in a fog. The kids were already asleep at my mother's house. I dropped them there after the recital. I sat at our kitchen table, staring at the photos, zooming in on the woman's face. She was beautiful, younger than me. I found myself going down a spiral of comparison and self-doubt before snapping out of it. This wasn't about me not being enough. This was about James being a liar and a cheat. I spent the night doing reconnaissance. With trembling hands, I went through James's emails, credit card statements, phone records, anything I could access. It didn't take long to put together the pieces. Her name was indeed Sophia. Sophia Blackwell. She was the marketing director at the company whose headquarters James was designing. According to their email exchanges, they'd been working closely together for about 6 months, but the tone had turned personal around 3 months ago. There were lunch receipts, hotel charges, text messages that made me physically ill. But the most telling piece of information was a reservation confirmation for the following Friday night. Another dinner at Aurelio's. They had a standing date, it seemed. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Our date night had been Fridays before James started claiming he needed to work late. I searched for Sophia Blackwell online. Found her LinkedIn profile, her company bio, and eventually her personal Instagram, which was public. There she was, living her best life. Beautiful vacations, perfect outfits, inspirational quotes about going after what you want. And there, in many of her photos, was a handsome man. Her husband, according to the captions. Daniel Blackwell, a surgeon at Memorial Hospital. I sat back, my mind racing. I had a week until their next date. A week to decide what to do. I considered my options. I could confront James immediately, but something told me to wait. To be strategic. To gather more evidence. To make a plan that would give me the upper hand when the inevitable confrontation happened. The next day, I called a lawyer. I moved half our savings into a separate account. I documented everything I'd found. And then I had an idea so perfect, so deliciously satisfying that it made me smile for the first time since discovering the affair. I picked up the phone and called Aurelio's. "I'd like to make a reservation for 2 for next Friday evening," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Around 7:30. And if possible, I'd like a table right next to the one reserved under Reynolds." The hostess didn't even question it. They had the perfect table available, right next to where my husband would be sitting with his mistress. Next came the harder part. I had to reach out to Daniel Blackwell. I debated how to do it. Email seemed too easy to ignore, and showing up at the hospital felt too public. I finally decided on a handwritten letter sent to his office, requesting a private meeting about an urgent personal matter concerning his wife. 3 days passed before he called the number I'd included in the letter. His voice was guarded, professional. "This is Dr. Blackwell. I received your letter. What's this about my wife?" I took a deep breath. "I think we should meet in person. It's sensitive. Are you free for coffee tomorrow?" He agreed, reluctantly. We met at a quiet cafe far from both our workplaces. Daniel Blackwell was every bit as handsome as his photos, but his face was lined with stress. He looked at me warily as I sat down. "Thank you for meeting me," I said. "My name is Elena Reynolds. My husband is James Reynolds." His expression didn't change. The name meant nothing to him. "James is an architect," I continued. "He's designing the new headquarters for Vision Tech. Where your wife works." A flicker of recognition. "Yes, Sophia's mentioned the project. What's this about?" I pulled out my phone, opened the photos I'd taken, and slid it across the table to him. "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but our spouses are having an affair." I watched his face as he looked at the pictures. Confusion, disbelief, and then a devastating realization. He scrolled through them slowly, his surgeon's hand suddenly unsteady. "How long?" he asked, his voice hollow. "At least 3 months, from what I found. Maybe longer." He handed my phone back, his eyes now hard. "Why are you showing me this? What do you want?" "I have a plan," I said, leaning forward. "They have a standing dinner date every Friday at Aurelio's. This Friday, I've reserved the table right next to theirs. I thought you might want to join me." He stared at me for a long moment. "You want to confront them in public? Make a scene?" I shook my head. "No scene. No yelling. Just a revelation. Let them see us together. Let them know that we know. And then we walk away with our dignity intact." Daniel was silent, processing. I could see the same emotions crossing his face that I'd been cycling through: anger, hurt, humiliation, vengeance. "I'll need proof beyond these photos," he finally said. "I have it," I assured him. "Email exchanges, hotel receipts, text messages. I'll send you everything." He nodded slowly. "Let me think about it." I left him my contact information and went home, not sure if he would agree to my plan. The next day, he texted me, "I'm in. What time on Friday?" The next few days were surreal. I went through the motions of normal life, taking care of the kids, running my business, even sleeping next to James, who had no idea what was coming. It was like I was watching myself from outside my body. I was calm in a way that surprised me, fueled by a cold determination to see this through. Friday arrived. I told James the first was having dinner with a potential client and wouldn't be home until late. He seemed relieved, probably because it made his own excuse easier. I dropped the kids at my mother's for an overnight stay. I got dressed with care, a black dress that I knew I looked good in, heels, the diamond earrings James had given me for our anniversary. Wore paint, of sorts. Daniel and I met a block away from the restaurant. He looked sharp in a tailored suit, his face set in grim determination. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied. We walked to Aurelio's together, arriving at 7:45, giving James and Sophia time to get settled. The hostess led us to our table, right next to where they sat, absorbed in each other, oblivious to our approach. Our table was positioned in such a way that James's back was to us, but Sophia was facing in our direction, though she was so focused on my husband she didn't notice us at first. Daniel and I sat down, ordered wine, and pretended to study our menus while stealing glances at the couple next to us. They looked happy. In love, even. James was saying something that made Sophia laugh, her head thrown back in genuine amusement. I felt a stab of pain so acute I nearly gasped. Daniel reached across the table and squeezed my hand, bringing me back to our plan. We let them order. Let them receive their appetizers. Let them continue in their bubble of secret romance for a little while longer. I watched as James reached across to feed Sophia a bite from his fork, an intimate gesture that he used to do with me. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. Finally, when their wine glasses were half empty and they were lost in conversation, I made my move. I stood up, took the 2 steps to their table, and leaned in. "Oh, what a small world," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The effect was instantaneous and exactly as I'd imagined. James froze mid-sentence, his back stiffening before he slowly turned to face me. Sophia's eyes widened in recognition. She knew exactly who I was from company events where spouses had been invited, though we'd never been formally introduced. "Elena," James choked out. "What are you, having dinner?" I said pleasantly. "Just like you." I gestured to Daniel, who had come to stand beside me. "This is Daniel. Daniel Blackwell. Sophia's husband." The color drained from both their faces. Sophia's hand flew to her throat, and James seemed incapable of speech. The restaurant continued around us, diners eating, servers moving between tables, but at that moment, it felt like the 4 of us were encased in a bubble of awful, suspended reality. "Daniel," Sophia finally whispered. "I can explain." "No need," Daniel said coolly. "I think the situation explains itself." James found his voice. "Elena, please, let's not do this here. We can talk at home." "Actually," I cut him off, "we won't be talking at home. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again." Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, placing it precisely in front of Sophia. I did the same with James. "Divorce papers," I said quietly. "Already filed?" "You've been served. We've coordinated with our respective lawyers to make this possible, not the usual way these things are done, but effective for our purposes." The legal process had already begun. "Elena, please," James said, reaching for my arm, panic in his eyes. I stepped back. "Enjoy the rest of your dinner. You two obviously have a lot to talk about." And with that, Daniel and I walked out together, leaving our spouses sitting in stunned silence. We didn't speak until we were outside, the cool night air a blessed relief after the suffocating tension inside. "That went exactly as planned," Daniel said, loosening his tie. "Yes," I agreed, though the victory felt hollow. "What now?" He checked his watch. "Now, I think we both could use a real drink." We found a quiet bar nearby and claimed a corner booth. I ordered a whiskey, neat, something I rarely drank but seemed appropriate for the occasion. Daniel ordered the same. "To the end of illusions," he toasted, his voice bitter. We drank in silence for a moment, the reality of what we'd just done, and what it meant for our futures, settling over us. "How long have you been married?" I asked. 7 years, he said. "No kids, thankfully." "You?" 9 years. 2 kids. A girl and a boy." He winced. "That's rough." "I'm sorry." My phone buzzed. "James." I silenced it and put it away. Daniels did the same a moment later. "They're comparing notes," he said with a grim laugh. "Trying to figure out what hit them." "Let them wonder," I said. "I'm in no hurry to talk to him." We ordered another round. The initial shock was wearing off, and I found myself telling Daniel about my marriage, about the good years before the betrayal. He shared his own story, how he and Sophia met during his residency, how they'd been planning to start trying for a family this year. "I had no idea," he said, staring into his glass. "No clue at all. Does that make me an idiot?" "If you're an idiot, so am I replied. I trusted James completely. My phone continued to vibrate periodically. Text messages now. I glanced at them briefly, James pleading for me to come home, to talk to him, saying it wasn't what I thought. "Sophia's doing the same," Daniel said, checking his own phone. "Begging me not to throw away our marriage over one mistake. As if it was just one time. They think they can talk their way out of this," I said. "Minimize it. Make us doubt what we know." "Classic cheater's playbook," he agreed. We stayed at the bar for hours, talking through our pain, our plans, our uncertain futures. There was something cathartic about being with someone who understood exactly what I was going through. By the time we said goodbye, exchanging numbers with promises to check in on each other, it was well past midnight. I went to my mother's house, where the kids were sleeping. I wouldn't subject them to the aftermath of tonight's revelation, not yet. That would require careful handling, and I wasn't ready. My mother took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong, but she didn't push. She simply made up the guest bed and promised to keep the kids occupied in the morning. I barely slept. My phone continued its assault: calls, texts, even emails from James. I turned it off eventually. I needed space to think, to feel, to process the end of my marriage on my own terms. In the morning light, the reality hit harder. The confrontation had been satisfying in the moment, but now the real work began. Lawyers. Division of assets. Co-parenting agreements. Telling our children, our families, our friends. The dismantling of an entire life built together. I turned my phone back onto a flood of notifications. James had called 27 times. There were 43 text messages, increasing in desperation as the night went on. Please come home. We need to talk. It's not what you think. I made a terrible mistake. I love you, not her. The kids need you. Need us. I'll do anything to fix this. The last one had come just 30 minutes ago. I'm outside your mother's house. Please talk to me. I looked out the window. Sure enough, James's car was parked across the street. He was sitting inside, head bowed. For a moment, I felt a crack in my resolve. This was James, my James, the man I'd loved for over a decade. The father of my children. The one who had held my hand through 2 difficult births, who had danced with me in our kitchen late at night, who had built pillow forts with our kids on rainy Sundays. But then I remembered the photos on my phone. His hand on hers. The secret hotel rooms. The lies. The broken promises. Our daughter's tears at her dance recital. I texted Daniel, James is outside my mother's house. Won't stop calling. How are you holding up? His response came quickly. Sophia showed up at 3 a.m. Crying, begging. Stayed on the porch all night. I didn't let her in. What are you going to do? I asked. Hold the line, he replied. You? I looked out at James again. The same. And I did. I ignored the calls. I didn't go outside. Eventually, James left, presumably to shower and change before trying again. The next few days were a blur of practical arrangements. I hired a moving company to pack up my essential belongings while James was at work. I found a furnished apartment with a short-term lease. I met with my lawyer to go over the divorce proceedings. I arranged for the children to stay with me during the week, with James having weekend visitation, a temporary arrangement until something more formal could be established. Through it all, James continued his campaign to win me back. Flowers. Handwritten letters. Promises to go to counseling. He even showed up at my office, causing such a scene that my assistant threatened to call security. And then there were the explanations, each more pathetic than the last. It didn't mean anything. It was just physical. He was going through a midlife crisis. He'd been feeling unappreciated. He'd been planning to end it. He'd never stopped loving me. Daniel was experiencing the same with Sophia. We kept in touch, comparing notes, offering support. There was something grounding about talking to someone who was walking the same painful path. We met for coffee once, then dinner. Not dates, just 2 people helping each other stay strong in the face of relentless emotional manipulation. 2 weeks after our confrontation at Aurelio's, James finally stopped calling. The silence was almost more unnerving than the constant contact had been. I wondered if he'd finally accepted that our marriage was over, or if he'd simply changed tactics. I got my answer 3 days later when I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. It's Sophia Blackwell. Can we meet? Please. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Why would I want to do that? Because I'm pregnant, came the reply. And we need to talk. My world tilted on its axis again. Pregnant. James's child. A sibling to my children. I felt physically ill. I showed the text to Daniel when we met for our now regular Sunday coffee. His face went ashen. Do you believe her? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. It could be true. Or it could be a desperate ploy to complicate things. If it's true. He couldn't finish the sentence. If it's true, it doesn't change anything for me, I said firmly. The divorce goes forward. But it would change things for you. He nodded slowly. I'd need proof. A paternity test. Are you going to meet with her? I don't know, he said. Are you? I thought about it. Yes, I decided. I want to hear what she has to say. Face to face. We arranged to meet Sophia together at a public cafe. She looked terrible, pale, drawn, her usual polish gone. Whether from morning sickness or stress, I couldn't tell. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice small. Both of you. Is it true? Daniel asked without preamble. Are you pregnant? She nodded, tears filling her eyes. 8 weeks. I found out just before. That night at the restaurant. And it's James's? I asked, my voice steady despite the churning in my stomach. Yes, she whispered. I'm certain. You'll understand if we require a paternity test, Daniel said coldly. She flinched but nodded again. Of course. Why are you telling us this? I asked. What do you want? She took a deep breath. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. About the pregnancy. But I thought you both had a right to know. How considerate, I said, unable to keep the sarcasm from my voice. Was James equally considerate when you told him? A flash of something, anger? Defensiveness? Crossed her face. He wants me to terminate. He says he wants to save his marriage. That this would make reconciliation impossible. I laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. There is no reconciliation. Pregnancy or no pregnancy. He doesn't seem to believe that, she said. He's convinced you'll take him back eventually. Then he's delusional, I said. As delusional as he was thinking he could have us both. Daniel had been quiet, watching Sophia intently. And what do you want? He finally asked her. She looked at him, real pain in her eyes. I want things to go back to the way they were. But I know that's impossible now. Yes, he agreed. It is. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. I studied this woman who had shattered my life. She was beautiful, yes, but sitting across from her now, I couldn't see what had been worth destroying 2 marriages for. She seemed ordinary in her misery. Human. Flawed. Whatever you decide about the pregnancy, I said finally, it doesn't change my decision about James. But if you have this child, I expect you to acknowledge that it has siblings. My children. They shouldn't be denied a relationship with their half-sibling because of the adult's mistakes. She nodded quickly, tears spilling over. Of course. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Especially not children. But you did hurt people, Daniel said quietly. You made choices knowing exactly what was at stake. She didn't deny it. She just sat there, absorbing his words, tears streaming down her face. We left shortly after, having nothing more to say to her. Outside, Daniel and I stood on the sidewalk, both processing this new complication. What now? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. Now we wait. For the paternity test. For her decision. For the divorces to finalize. For the dust to settle. And then? He looked at me, really looked at me. And then we rebuild. Separately or? He trailed off. Or? I prompted. A small smile, the first I'd seen from him. Let's get through this part first. One day at a time. I nodded. One day at a time. Later that evening, James called again. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Did she tell you? He asked immediately. Yes, I said. Elena, you have to believe me. I didn't know she would get pregnant. I never wanted this. I want our family, our life back. There's no going back, James. Not from this. Please, he begged. Just talk to me. In person. We raised 2 beautiful children together. We built a life. 9 years, Elena. You can't throw that away. I didn't throw it away, I said, my voice hard. You did. The moment you decided that our vows, our family, our trust meant less than whatever thrill you got from sleeping with her. It was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. I cut him off. What you did was a series of deliberate choices. Over and over again, for months. You lied. You schemed. You betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. And now there might be a child. Another life affected by your selfishness. He was quiet for a moment. I still love you, he said finally. I never stopped. That makes it worse, not better, I told him. If you loved me, how could you hurt me this way? He had no answer for that? I'm hanging up now, James. My lawyer will contact you about finalizing the custody arrangement. Please respect my wishes and stop calling. I ended the call before he could respond, before the sound of his voice could weaken my resolve any further. 3 months have passed since that night at Aurelio's. The divorces are proceeding. James finally stopped fighting it when the paternity test confirmed that Sophia was indeed carrying his child. She decided to continue with the pregnancy. Daniel moved across the country for a fresh start at a new hospital. We still talk occasionally, 2 survivors of the same storm. The hardest part was telling our children. They're young enough that we spared them the sordid details, but old enough to understand that daddy made choices that hurt mommy, and that sometimes adults who love each other can't live together anymore. They know about the baby. They have questions I don't always know how to answer. I'm still angry. Still hurt. But I'm also, surprisingly, relieved. There's a clarity that comes with the end of deception. A weight lifted. I look in the mirror now and see someone stronger than I knew existed. James still calls sometimes. Not to beg anymore, but to discuss the children, to check in, to maintain some connection to the life he destroyed. I answer when I need to. I'm civil. For the kids. For my own peace of mind. People ask if I regret the way I exposed the affair. The public confrontation. the calculated revenge. I don't. In that moment at Aurelio's, I reclaimed my power. I refused to be the unsuspecting wife, the last to know, the object of pity. I made sure the narrative was mine to write. And in the darkest moments, when the future seems overwhelming and the pain of betrayal resurfaces, I remember Daniel's words, one day at a time. So that's what I'm doing. One day at a time, rebuilding a life that's entirely my own. Comments. You/divorced and thriving, iconic power move. Honestly, the fact that you kept your composure through that dinner is legendary. Wishing you all the best on your healing journey. You/justice served 101, the way you coordinated with her husband. Chef's kiss. Your ex thought he was so smooth until that moment. Talk about consequences. You/therapy thoughts. As a couples therapist, I'm usually all about reconciliation when possible, but this level of deception and the pregnancy? You made the right call walking away. Sometimes clean breaks heal better. You/single dad now, man, that pregnancy bomb after everything else. Brutal. Sending strength to you and those kids. Having been through something similar, I promise it gets easier. You/legal eagle 42, attorney here. The divorce papers delivery at the restaurant was dramatic but not technically proper service in most jurisdictions. Still, absolutely worth it for the look on their faces. You/survivor of infidelity, 3 years post-divorce for my cheating ex here. Trust me when I say the pain fades and the confidence grows. You handled this with remarkable strength. It really does get better. You/wise woman 55, the fact that you considered his potential child's relationship with your children shows incredible maturity and kindness in the face of such betrayal. Your kids are lucky to have you as their mother. You/as it unfolds, please update us in a few months. And I'm curious, did you and Daniel ever consider dating after all this? Ops response, thanks for all the support. To answer the question many have asked, Daniel and I have become friends through this ordeal, but we're both focusing on healing right now rather than jumping into something new. Who knows what the future holds, but for now, we're just two people helping each other navigate a difficult path. Maybe someday I'll share that update.